Folks, this is 2D Gaming here, and I'm going to be explaining how the fuck keyboard from the last video was able to work. So here we have just a little nugget of the final product. This is a stackable sorter. This entire keyboard is just one large sorter with redstone outputs. So if I go ahead and remove this, and this entire thing right here is one module. You see here, this is the filtration circuit, the filter output, and we have our walls and observers. If you are not familiar with Wallstone, I recommend watching a video or learning up on it yourself. I'm not going to be explaining Wallstone. But the needless thing to say is that Wallstone is a near perfect vertical redstone output. No matter where you are, as long as you have a 3x1 wide area with walls in the middle of it, you can send a redstone signal from world height to bedrock, at least as far as I'm aware. Anyway, so this filter, as said in the previous video, is what allows for the entire keyboard to even be able to function. Now, the real question is, how the fuck do we get this thing to not break? And that's thankfully easy enough to explain. It is because of these pots. Now, why is it because of these pots? Well, because they only have one inventory slot, which makes them easier on lag, as well as easier to filter things through. If I decide to, I'm just going to use honeycomb as an example. If I want to filter out honeycomb through a system, then I can. Oops, I'm bad. Whatever. You get the gist. If I want this entire thing to filter out honeycomb, then all I need to do is get something that does not stack easily, and then it's mine. Let's go ahead and get some shots. That's the way that I do it. And that's the way that Folly and us did it. One, two, three, four, five. As you saw there, return 5 into a 0 output. Let's say some trapdoors all the way over here. If I were to dispense one from this system, i.e. if I were to take one honeycomb out, it would draw from the pot, which is detectable, because this hopper right here behind it is locked. I can't put any more ticks of delay on this repeater, otherwise it fills up with a whole bunch, and I don't want that, because that'll make it so much harder and so much less precise. Now, if I were to be a big old asshole and decide to build this in survival mode, I could. You can even use this entire thing to make a vending machine if you feel like wasting your time. But as I said before, if I were to simply going. If I were to simply yoink that, everything would be perfectly fine. That sends out a redstone signal that can be traced and tracked all the way down the redstone line until it gets to that. Now, I did separate the loop from the rest of the circuit. That way we can examine this on a much more educational level. So we have three things of note with this piston feed tape loop. We have our enter key input, our automatic next line input, and our timer. Our enter key input allows us to make use of the timer in order to see about sending messages across the lines. That takes around 175 at the very least. At least when it comes to redstone ticks. But I'm not clear. Now, if I were to put this instead, thanks to the walls being detecting by the observers, this has no issue with auto next lining. You do have to time it correctly, which is why if I head back to the UI over here, which is why we have this light here. This light both signals when an enter key has been pressed, as well as when the actual machine has auto bumped. Meaning that you can detect and correctly time how you're typing things, which makes it useful if you're doing a consistent amount of typing throughout your play session. The reason why these repeaters are set to specifically 3 redstone ticks on these repeaters is mostly due to preventing them from getting stuck. A lot of the trials that I've done with redstone repeaters, especially on this, at least on this size, the bigger it is, the more ticks you'll have to use in order to keep it all even and synchronous. Especially if you are going to be doing something like this with a piston and a wall. So as you see here, this entire thing is just one big block of just information. It takes up a lot of room, it takes up a lot of time, and it especially takes up a pretty decent amount of data. Now, if you were to type out, let's just go with the whole B-movie script, that would take about a few days just by using this system here. You can use a much smaller system, faster, more reliable. But this is meant to send longer messages, or specifically to send like passcodes or some shit. Said passcodes would be in the form of firework stars, but again, I'm not going to get into that. That would just be a whole nother can of worms that I'm not fucking with. I'm good. I don't want that smoke. Now, I did not include the wiring under here. However, I will simply mark out with observers where the lines would be able to transmit into. As you see here, all of this is where our redstone repeaters go. They have at least one tick, which will allow us to be able to, well, detect the things. So let's go ahead and place these. Boop, boop, boop. This will allow us to inscribe all our data onto this. However, you are probably questioning why the fuck did I not put the entire automatic next line system on it? Well, because that's fucking stupid. Why would I want to show that? It's just a bunch of rails. Is this entire thing here, down here, is the automatic next line. And that's the second reason why I have such slow repeaters, is because the observers fire twice. If I were to allow the observers to fire twice without any of these, then the entire system would absolutely shit itself. At least as far as I recall. Again, I'm not a redstone expert. I'm not a computational redstone expert. I'm just a dude who fucks with mechanics and sees what he can break or make with that shit. Now, what does this fucking shit here and this fucking shit have to do with one another? Well, as I've demonstrated before in my previous video, this connects to these wires down here, which in turn connects to both our UI, which allows us to see what letter we've typed, and it allows us to actually inscribe it onto this. But you may be thinking to yourself, well, 2D, why would we need to do that? We have plenty of things that can do that for us without using 5-digit binary. Yes, we do. However, I like things to be readable right off the bat. And I don't feel like wasting my time, especially when we can utilize something really specific. Something that's already built and doesn't require so much redstone. It would take close to 4,000 and some change redstone dust if you were to use a dust trail that goes around 18 blocks, including 2 blocks and a repeater in between them, with 15 redstone dust. That's to go around 200 blocks. So from right around here to somewhere all the way over there. Just to make one small segment to go 18 blocks, it would take a good amount of redstone dust. Meanwhile, it only takes 120 to produce 10 towers that use 12 redstone dust for just the filtration system each. All of this extra dust here, you can cut it out. Because I don't need this dust, this dust, or anything else. If it is read only, or if it is write only, then I don't need the extra dust. You can skim it down off the top. The reason why I didn't add that into my calculations is because it is conditional. All that extra dust is conditional. If you want to add that much dust, go ahead. If you don't want to add that much dust, go ahead. That's your choice. These sculpt lines are meant to be configurable. They're also meant to be uniform. If you want to have the entirety of the towers decked out, all the redstone dust that they could possibly handle, go ahead. I'm not going to stop you. Hell, I wouldn't even try to stop you at that point. Because then you would have probably seen all of the potential of Sculpt. Then again, this begs the question, why feed tape? Why not RAM? Why not something that is able to save a large amount of your data? Well, this is just to show that this fucking thing works. That the keyboard is actually able to transmit data. And this and smaller versions of this feed tape are far easier to construct than an entire RAM stick, which I don't have the intelligence yet to understand. But just because I don't have the intelligence now doesn't mean that I won't have it later. I may be hearing voices in my head right now, but I'm assuming that you all are saying, but that's stupid. Why would we want to do that? Why would we want to inscribe so much data upon a fucking feed tape? Like, what good does that do? Well, it does plenty, actually. Because it allows us to actually utilize a system that can automatically type for us. Sure, yeah, we could base everything off of 10 redstone ticks, but not everybody can rely on that. So, we have this. This provides a buffer state, allowing us to type out a message as long as we need it to go, or to just continuously type out the message, and it slowly trickles into the system, and this allows us to have a nice, pleasant, and I do mean pleasant, little system that gives us all that we need. And that is plenty of data in plenty of time. Now, the reason why I have rails is to detect the data that was sent. It doesn't matter how much data there was, as long as even just a little bit is sent, this light here lights up. It tells me that something was sent along the sculpt lines, meaning I've reached capacity. If I were to type out an entire message, such as hello world, or hello everybody, or something like that, into the system, and I were to keep typing it out, the sculpt lines would be able to use that to send data. Now, where that data goes is up for interpretation. Does it go into the vacuum that is redstone hell? Or does it go into a computer which allows us to be able to read, write, and perform advanced logistics. I would say the latter, personally. If you decide to copy this keyboard design or this loop design, please keep in mind this entire thing is very particular, especially since you've got a lot of redstone dust just here. So just be very careful where you place things. I would put the world download, but I don't feel like it. Especially since I have my my own reasons not to do that. But as I said before, if you're gonna copy this, just make sure that you're careful and that you don't feel like my bullshit is actually bullshit. Most of this was just trial and error, so don't fucking come at me. In fact, if you do come at me, stay mad, I guess. Because I'm not gatekeeping anything. Why would I want to gatekeep any of this? This is way too much for me to handle alone. And with that, thank you, motherfuckers, for watching my video. If you enjoyed, do whatever the fuck you want. I don't give a fuck. Like, comment what your favorite thing was about this fucking machine or something. I don't fuck. I just work it. Comment what your favorite feature about my keyboard is, or what you want to see next. Because I can do a few deep dives related to some of this bullshit. Like I've fucking barely scratched the surface of what I can do, and a few of my discoveries, or rediscoveries as well. But anyway, thank you, motherfuckers, for watching, and I appreciate your time today. God damn, this is a fucking long ass video. I didn't even expect for this shit to be this long. Anyway, I'll see y'all next time. See ya.